The crystalline spires of House Malvois reached toward 3 moons that hung like pearls in the violet sky. Inside the governor's palace, servants whispered behind closed doors, their voices carrying the weight of scandal and shame. In the eastern tower, locked away from sight, lived the governor's greatest disappointment. Seraphine pressed her face against the cool glass of her window, watching the winged figures soar between the floating gardens. The skyborn were magnificent in flight, their iridescent wings catching the light as they danced through the air. She had been born with wings like theirs, delicate and beautiful, the pale blue of morning frost. But she had never felt the wind beneath them. Her legs had refused to work since birth, and among the skyborn, flight was everything. To be grounded was to be worthless. The door opened without ceremony. Governor Malvois entered, his own wings folded tight against his back, his expression carved from stone. Behind him, 2 guards waited in silence. "Father," Seraphine said, turning her chair away from the window. Her heart already knew what this visit meant. She had seen the disgust growing in his eyes over the years, the way he flinched when courtiers asked about his daughter. "You will address me as governor," he said coldly. "You have lost the right to call me father." Seraphine's hands trembled in her lap, but she kept her voice steady. "What have I done to deserve your hatred?" "What have you done?" Malvois laughed, bitter and sharp. "You exist. You sit in that chair, while my rivals mock me. They call you the broken bird, and they call me the fool who keeps you. Every day you remain, my house loses respect." "I have studied every text in your library," Seraphine said desperately. "I can read the old tongue, calculate trade routes faster than your advisors, interpret weather patterns from the star movements." "Enough!" His voice cracked like thunder. "Do you think anyone cares what a cripple can read? In 3 days, I host the Summit of Houses. Every governor in the system will attend. I will not have them see you." The room seemed to spin. Seraphine gripped the arms of her chair. "What are you saying?" Malvois nodded to the guards. They moved forward, lifting her chair despite her protests. "I am saying goodbye, daughter. The wasteland below will be your new home. Perhaps the desert wind will teach you what I could not, that some things are better forgotten." "Father, please." Seraphine's composure shattered. "Don't do this." "I can help you." "I can," but her words fell on deaf ears. They carried her through corridors she had memorized from childhood, down spiral stairs she had never been allowed to descend. Servants turned away, unwilling to meet her eyes. No one would help her. No one ever did. The transport ship waited in the lower hangar, its hull scarred from countless desert crossings. They loaded her inside like cargo, ignoring her tears. Malvois stood at the hangar entrance, silhouetted against the purple sky. "I have arranged for your chair to be left with you," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Consider it a final kindness. Do not pray for rescue. No one will come." The ship's engines roared to life, drowning out her screams. The desert planet of Ashara was called the Graveyard of Ambitions by those who knew it. Its rust-colored sands stretched forever beneath a merciless white sun. Heat shimmered in waves across dunes that shifted like living things. Nothing grew here. Nothing survived for long. Darien wiped sweat from his brow and adjusted the cloth wrapped around his face. He had been crossing Ashara for 5 days, carrying trade samples he hoped to sell to the mining colonies on the far side. The journey was brutal, but the profit would be worth it. At least, that was what he told himself with each agonizing step. He was human, and humans were not meant for worlds like this. But desperation made people do extraordinary things. The sun was reaching its peak when he noticed something strange. A reflection, sharp and out of place, glinted from behind a nearby dune. Darian's hand moved instinctively to the blade at his hip. Bandits sometimes hid in the wastes. waiting for foolish travelers. But as he crested the dune, weapon ready, what he found made him freeze. A woman lay half buried in the sand, her body twisted at an unnatural angle. She wore the fine robes of skyborn nobility, now torn and covered in dust. Her wings, those magnificent wings he had only seen in pictures, were spread behind her like broken glass. But what caught his attention was the chair, an elegant piece of technology designed for someone who could not walk. Lying overturned beside her, she was still breathing. Darian ran forward, dropping to his knees beside her. "Can you hear me? Hey, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open. They were the color of storm clouds, beautiful and haunted. Her lips moved, cracked and bleeding from thirst. "Leave me," she whispered. "I am already dead. Not while I'm here, you're not." Darian pulled his water flask free and carefully lifted her head. "Drink, slowly." She drank like someone who had forgotten what water tasted like. When she finally pulled away, tears cut tracks through the dust on her face. "Why?" she asked. "Why help me? You don't know me." Darian looked at her, really looked. He saw the expensive cloth of her robes, the noble cut of her features, the abandonment written in every line of her body. "I don't need to know you to see that someone left you here to die. And I don't need to know your story to know that's wrong." "I cannot walk," she said, as if this explained everything. "I cannot fly. I am worthless to my people. Then your people are fools." Darian righted her chair, checking its mechanisms. The anti-gravity generators were damaged but functional. "I'm Darian, by the way. Merchant, wanderer, apparently terrible judge of safe travel routes." The ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Seraphine, daughter of no one, I suppose." "Well, Seraphine, daughter of no one. Let's get you out of this sun before we both become corpses." He lifted her gently, marveling at how light she was, and settled her into the chair. Her wings draped over the sides, still beautiful despite the sand clinging to them. She touched the controls, and the chair hummed to life, hovering inches above the sand. Relief flooded her features, followed quickly by suspicion. "You should leave me. My father's men will hunt me. If they find you helped me, let them come." Darian adjusted his pack and started walking. "I've faced worse than angry noblemen. You don't understand. My father is Governor Malthus. He rules 3 systems. His reach is, I understand perfectly." Darian glanced back at her. "But here's what I know. You're alive. You're smart enough to warn me about danger. And you deserve better than dying alone in the sand. The rest we'll figure out." Seraphine stared at him, her storm cloud eyes wide with disbelief. In 23 years of life, no one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever looked at her and seen anything beyond her broken legs. "There are caves to the east," she said quietly. "I studied the geological surveys in my father's library. They should provide shelter." Darian grinned. "See? Already making yourself useful. Lead the way." As they moved across the burning sand, Seraphine felt something she had not experienced in years. Hope. This human, this stranger, had chosen to see her as a person worth saving. And perhaps, just perhaps, he was right behind them, in the shimmering heat. The first of Malthus's hunter ships appeared on the horizon. But neither of them noticed. Not yet. The story of their survival, their defiance, and something deeper was only beginning. The caves carved themselves into the eastern cliffs like the mouth of some ancient beast. Darian pushed forward through the scorching afternoon, his legs burning with exhaustion. Beside him, Seraphine's chair hummed softly as it glided over the uneven terrain, its anti-gravity generators straining against the weight of sand and heat. "There," she pointed with a trembling hand, "the largest opening. It will lead deeper into the rock where the temperature drops. Darian nodded, too tired to speak. They had been moving for hours, the white sun beating down without mercy. His water was nearly gone, rationed between them in careful sips. But they had made it. The cave entrance loomed before them like salvation. Inside, the temperature dropped immediately. Darian sagged against the stone wall, breathing hard. The cave stretched back into darkness, but the first chamber was spacious enough for them both. He pulled a small light from his pack, activating its soft glow. Sci-Fi maneuvered her chair deeper inside, her expression focused. She studied the walls, running her fingers over the rough stone. This is good. The rock is thick. It will hide our heat signatures from scanning equipment. Darian looked at her with renewed surprise. You know about military tracking? I read everything in my father's library, she said quietly. Military strategy, engineering, navigation. I had nothing else to do but learn. Her voice carried years of lonely study, of a mind desperate to prove its worth. Darian settled onto the ground, opening his pack to take inventory. 2 days of dried food, half a flask of water, basic medical supplies, and his blade. Not much to survive on. He looked up to find Sci-Fi watching him with those storm cloud eyes. I'm sorry, she said softly. You saved my life, and now you're trapped with me. If you had left me in the desert, you would be safe. Stop apologizing for existing. Darian's voice was firm but gentle. You didn't ask to be abandoned, and I chose to help you. Those are my consequences to face, not yours. She blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. No one has ever spoken to me this way before. Like I'm a person, and you've been surrounded by blind fools. Darian offered her water first. She hesitated, then drank gratefully. As darkness fell outside, the temperature plummeted. Desert nights were as cruel as their days, freezing instead of burning. Darian built a small fire using dead brush he had collected along the way. The flames cast dancing shadows across Seraphine's face, highlighting the elegant bone structure common to the skyborn. Tell me about yourself, she said suddenly. You know my shame. What brings a human to Ashara? Darian poked at the fire. Desperation mostly. I'm a merchant, but not a very successful one. I take routes other traders avoid because the profit margins are better. Dangerous, but better. You don't seem desperate. You seem ... kind. He laughed softly. Kindness and desperation aren't mutually exclusive. My family died in a colony collapse when I was young. I've been wandering ever since, looking for something I can't quite name. Purpose, maybe. Or just a reason to keep going. Sci-Fi absorbed this, understanding flickering in her eyes. We are both orphans then. Both cast aside by the worlds that made us. Maybe that's why I couldn't leave you. Darian met her gaze across the firelight. I know what it feels like to be alone. The moment stretched between them, intimate and fragile. Then a sound shattered it, the distant whine of engines approaching. Seraphine's face went pale. They've found us. Darian grabbed his blade, moving to the cave entrance. In the moonlit darkness, he could see 3 sleek hunter ships descending toward the cliffs. Their searchlights cut through the night like accusations. How did they track us? He hissed. Seraphine's mind raced. The chair. The anti-gravity generators leave a subtle energy signature. I didn't think they would scan for something so faint, but... She closed her eyes, cursing herself. Can you turn it off? Yes, but then I cannot move. Darian returned to her side, his expression fierce. Then I'll carry you. We need to go deeper into the caves. No. He lifted her from the chair with practiced ease, surprised again by how light she felt. Her wings folded naturally against her back as he settled her in his arms. She wrapped her arms around his neck, her breath warm against his cheek. I'm frightened, she whispered. Me too, he admitted. But we're not dead yet. They moved deeper into the cave system, leaving the chair and Darian's pack behind. The searchlights swept through the entrance they had just abandoned, illuminating the empty chamber. Voices echoed from outside, harsh and professional. Corvath, we have her chair. No bodies. A new voice responded, cold and sharp as broken glass. Then they're deeper inside. Ganner, Tresh, with me. The governor wants proof of death. We're not leaving without it. Seraphine stiffened in Darian's arms. Corvath, she breathed. My father's chief enforcer. He's never failed a hunt. There's a first time for everything, Darian muttered, though his heart hammered with fear. The cave twisted and branched, a labyrinth of stone passages. Darian moved by instinct, choosing the darkest paths. Behind them, lights flickered. The hunters were coming. Wait, Seraphine whispered urgently. Stop here. Darian obeyed, pressing against the wall. They had reached a junction where 3 passages met. Do you trust me? She asked, with my life apparently. Then take the left passage. Walk exactly 20 paces, then press your back against the right wall, and don't move. What? Why, please. I studied cave systems extensively. I recognize these formations. Just trust me. Darian did as instructed, counting his steps carefully. At 20 paces, he pressed against the wall, holding Seraphine tight. Behind them, the hunters' lights grew brighter. They went this way. Someone shouted heavy boots pounded toward them. Darian held his breath, certain they would be discovered. But then a strange thing happened. The hunters ran straight past their position, taking the center passage without slowing. Their lights disappeared into the darkness ahead. Darian exhaled slowly. How did you? The cave curves, Seraphine explained quietly. Light refracts differently here. Where we're standing appears as solid wall from the angle they approached. It's an optical illusion created by the mineral deposits. You're brilliant, Darian said, genuine awe in his voice. She smiled against his shoulder, a real smile this time. I told you. Reading was all I could do. They waited in silence for long minutes. Eventually, they heard the hunters returning, their voices frustrated. Nothing down there but dead ends, one grumbled. Corvath's voice cut through the darkness like a knife. The cave system is extensive. We'll make camp at the entrance and search systematically at dawn. They can't hide forever. They have no food, no water. Time is our ally. The hunters retreated, their lights fading. Soon, only silence remained. Darian carefully made his way back toward the cave entrance, moving by feel in the darkness. When they reached the first chamber again, he set Seraphine down gently against the wall. They're blocking our exit, he said. And they're right about one thing. We can't survive long without supplies. Seraphine's mind was already working. There's another way. These caves were formed by underground water systems. If we can find the source, it might lead to an exit on the other side of the cliff face. That's a big if. It's all we have. She looked at him seriously. I need my chair to move efficiently. Can you retrieve it without being seen? Darian considered the risk. The hunters would be watching, but they would expect him to flee, not return. Sometimes the boldest move was the safest. Stay here. Don't move. He crept back toward the entrance, every sense alert. The hunter ships were positioned outside, their hulls gleaming in the moonlight. But the pilots would be inside the cave mouth, setting up their camp. He could see the glow of their fire. Moving with infinite care, Darian circled wide, approaching from an angle where shadows gathered thick. He could hear Corvath's voice giving orders, smell the rations being heated. His heart pounded so hard, he was certain they would hear it. The chair sat abandoned near the cave mouth, forgotten in the search. Darian reached it, deactivating its systems to eliminate any sound. Then he began the agonizing process of carrying it back through the darkness. A stone shifted under his foot. The sound echoed like thunder. What was that? Someone snapped. Ain froze. Pressed against cold stone, the chair clutched in his arms. Footsteps approached his position. A light swept past, missing him by inches. Just a rock fall, another voice said. These caves are unstable. Check it anyway. The footsteps came closer. Darian's hand moved to his blade, knowing that if discovered, he would have to fight. And fighting 3 armed hunters would mean death. Then Seraphine's voice rang out from deeper in the caves, high and desperate. Help, please, someone help me. The hunters spun toward the sound. There! Corvath shouted, move! They ran toward her voice, lights bouncing wildly. Darian didn't waste the opportunity. He moved quickly back to where he had left Seraphine, finding her pressed against the wall, her expression terrified but determined. That was incredibly reckless, he whispered. So was going back for the chair. She smiled shakily. We're even. He helped her into the chair, and she activated its systems on the lowest setting. The hum was barely audible. They'll realize you're not where your voice came from, Darian said. I know. These caves carry sound strangely. I used the acoustics, but we don't have much time. They moved deeper into the cave system, following the subtle downward slope. Seraphine's knowledge proved invaluable. She identified safe passages by the mineral formations, avoided unstable sections by the sound of settling stone, and navigated as if she had been born in darkness. Hours passed. The hunters' voices faded behind them. And then, finally, Darian heard the soft trickle of water. They emerged into a vast underground chamber. A stream ran through its center, fed by some hidden source above. The water was cold and clear, more precious than diamonds. Darian laughed with relief, and Seraphine joined him. They drank deeply, washing away the dust and fear. The chamber had multiple exits, including one where fresh air flowed, suggesting an escape route. As they rested beside the stream, Seraphine looked at Darian with something new in her eyes. Not just gratitude, but something warmer, something that made her heart race. You could have run, she said softly. When I distracted them, you could have escaped alone. Never crossed my mind. Darian met her gaze, and for a moment, the cave seemed to fade away. There was only her, illuminated by the soft glow of his light, beautiful and brave and brilliant. Why? She asked. Why do you stay with me? Darian reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed a strand of dark hair from her face. Because leaving you would be like leaving part of myself behind. I don't understand it yet, but from the moment I found you in that desert, something changed. You changed me. Seraphine's breath caught. No one had ever looked at her with such open emotion, such raw honesty. Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining. I was ready to die in that sand, she whispered. I thought my life had no value. But you see something in me that I've never seen in myself. I see everything, Darian said. Your courage, your mind, your strength. I see someone worth knowing, worth protecting, worth. He paused, the word too large to speak yet, but Seraphine heard it anyway in the space between heartbeats. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his, their shared breath mingling in the cool air. We should rest, she said quietly, though neither of them moved apart. We have a long journey ahead. Yes, Darian agreed, his thumb tracing patterns on her hand. But whatever comes, we face it together. In the darkness of the underground chamber, far from hunters and fathers and cruel worlds, something precious was beginning to grow. Not just survival, but connection. Not just gratitude, but the first tender shoots of something deeper. Outside, Corvath and his hunters searched the empty passages, unaware that their prey had already slipped away. And above ground, Governor Malvois waited in his crystalline palace, believing his shame had been erased. But in the heart of stone and water, two outcasts had found something neither had known they needed. They had found each other, and nothing would ever be the same.